Welcome everyone to episode 7 of the Motorsport Show. I'm Gerald McDornan and
I'm not.
you're not. Philip, how are you, Philip?
I'm good. 7.
Episode 7.
That's amazing. Well done, us.
How have you been, Philip?
Weary. Thanks for asking. Been a bit concerned about the situation in Brexit. What about you?
I'm rooted, actually.
Well, are we talking about the same thing?
Well, we had a bit of a change of venue today.
We have.
We shot the first 6 episodes out of Tony DeFelice, GT and drag racer, out of his factory or his toy shop where he likes to keep his race cars, with the help of Murray Anderson, a good mate of mine who's a World Championship winning race car builder, drag car builder. Unfortunately, Murray's been pretty crook lately and called up today and said, listen, I can't be there for the show, and so
Get well soon, Murray.
If I'm not there, we're not there.
That's right. We can't. Well, it's a bit hard. It's a bit hard when you can't get in.
Anyway, so thanks to Robbie Fuzzy and his wife Kerry.
And the luxurious surrounds of where we are. In Mulgrave tonight, we should call this show.
Not that you'd know. It looks no different. We've got a couple more cars. We've got a couple of Fords there, which, you know,
We're in Walkinshaw country. We're next door to Clayton, really, aren't we? What are we, about 2 k's away?
Yeah.
As the crow flies?
Yeah, about 2 k's.
And now there's going to be people knocking on factory doors, going door to door. Is this where they do the Motorsport show? No.
Oh, yes.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Fans, stay at home.
Anyway, so other than being a little bit rooted, I'm pretty damn good.
Good. What's been going on in the big bad world of motor racing?
Well,
what hasn't been going on?
What hasn't been going on? There's been plenty going on. Even tonight, there's lots of news rolling out, Philip, at the last minute.
At the last minute. We'll bring you some of those in the next few minutes.
Yeah, but lots to talk about tonight. Of course, there's F1, there's supercars, there's TCR, there's NASCAR, there's drag racing. There's, young up-and-comers, and we're even going to talk about 87-year-olds as well tonight.
Don't look at me when you say 87. I'm not 87 yet.
Yet.
I'm getting there.
That's a bad number for an Australian.
It's not good, is it?
No, it's 13 short of 100.
Yeah, well, don't do that. Cricket. Every time there's a cricket commentator who says it's 13 short of 100, it's the devil's number. I jump up and down on 1 foot like they do in England. That's 111. Anyway, let's not talk about cricket. Let's talk about racing cars.
Lord Nelson. So anyway, so there's plenty going on in that regard.
Yep.
So there you go. Great to have everyone's company. And
thanks. Send us questions on the Facebooks, please, if you want to know what's going on. If you've got any tips for us. Who signed up recently? Who has re-signed recently their deals? On the
interwebs, on Facebook. Yep, we'd love to get your questions and get your comments as well.
Thanks for the comments. Trying not to breathe in the microphone. Thank you for that.
Oh, hang on. Got to turn my sound off here. So I've got the Facebook going. David Driscoll, 24 hours of GTs at Spa. Boy, it's a long way to go. Can't be trusted with the keys. No, at the other place. No. And we understand that. Hello, Frankie Palermo as well. So we've got the questions going on here. We've got the feed going, which is great. So
it is.
Hang on, I've just got to make sure I can see them all the time. But our stream's going good as well. We're going out on not Mr. Rudd's NBN.
No, because that would have been faster.
No.
This is the Mark II NBN. This is the steam-powered NBN, and it's actually not bad.
Which is...
can't complain.
What was his name?
If you've forgotten already... You're not good with politics, are you? Thank God they don't let you write about politics. Let's talk about some racing cars. What's happened today in AGP land, Gerald?
AGP?
Yeah.
Well, on the weekend they slipped it out that... They've re-signed the contract with Formula One, which is great, going until 2025.
6 more years.
Yeah, so they already had that locked in for a couple of those
23.
years.
This is a 2-year extension.
Yeah, so they give it a 2-year extension, which is good with the owners at Liberty, who are trying to work out actually where Formula One sits. Is it entertainment? Is it?
It will be a new generation of car by the time the new contract, the contract runs its course, and of course that's going to be introduced, I think, in 21.
So hopefully we have some more entertaining races than what we've had.
Yeah, it hasn't been great.
It certainly started off well. Next year's the 25th running of the Formula One Grand Prix at Albert Park, and
big plans coming up too.
Big first corner accident that
Yeah.
first year, and a lot of stuff went on. That was entertaining, but the last few years haven't been great.
And that's not the event. It's not the circuit so much. It's the cars. So it's hard to have this generation of cars follow each other in overtaking, but they are addressing that, or they said this is what their priorities are for the next generation of Formula One cars. But anyway, let's talk about that. And congratulations to the Australian Grand Prix Corporation and motor racing fans everywhere. 6 more years at Albert Park. So, and
Although if you actually sat down and looked at the books, and sometimes you got to do this,
yeah,
they've spent more than $800 million
it's a lot of money.
hosting that race at Albert Park.
And there's always economic justifiers for these sorts of things about economic activity and all that sort of stuff. I don't know anything about that. I'm going to go to the Grand Prix anyway, so I'm the worst person possibly to make a comment on those sorts of things. But there's one thing I will say in the lead up to next year's race, and since this is sort of a segue into that, to everybody in the newspapers, don't write a story about Sydney trying to get the goddamn race. We are totally over it, or any other city. If the Gold Coast is going to have the Olympic Games, they're probably not going to have the Formula One Grand Prix, and the race isn't going anywhere till at least 26. So let's not reheat the same old tired bullshit stories again.
Malcolm Turnbull.
He hasn't got a very good record when it comes to Formula One.
Thank you, Matt Bainey. Malcolm Turnbull.
What, with the internet?
Yeah.
NBN? It's actually announced by Kevin Rudd.
No, but this one. Oh, hello, Pamela Simpson Burton from Indiana. Hello, Miss Indiana. Great to have your company, and I hope you enjoy the show. Brian Ferrugia, hi, lads. Graham Cox, what did you think of the TCR races at the Bend?
We'll talk about that in a bit. We've got some TCR stuff coming up later on.
Silverstone race was great, boys, says David Driscoll. So we're going to talk about that.
It wasn't bad.
And in the news, we'll talk TCR. The big news today, and let's go to our first bit of vision for the day. Rob's in another room, and there they are, the TCRs.
No overtaking. Look at that. That is just pathetic. Come on, get into it, Leanne.
50 kilometres per hour around the Albert Park circuit, but great news for that new category in Australia that the Australian Grand Prix Corporation has signed them on to the support bill. And there is Leanne Tander and James Moffat. Leanne hoping to get a full season next year, and let's hope she does, because
that'd be great.
I said on the last show, I don't like tokenism.
No.
Leanne Tander is a competitive driver and deserves to be driving in that series fully backed full time.
Qualified accountant, and
what's that got to do with how fast you go?
And she's studying psychology.
Oh, don't.
Garth, I think we know who got the brains in the family. Just saying.
Imagine that. She's going to psychoanalyze all of your spending.
Yeah, I know. And I've always been a fan. She's a very good driver. And a nice person.
Australian champion and everything.
Now,
so great news for TCR.
Well, what do we think about this?
Well, yeah,
it's a big platform for them to be on, isn't it? It's the biggest platform they're going to have for the year, probably. Well, maybe not.
Yeah. So let's get your comments if you want to say. Thanks for pronouncing my last name right, says Matt
Brannigan.
Barney. Hey, you ought to have McDornan for a name. Fuck.
You shouldn't. Try and go through an American airport with that name.
No. See.
That's not good.
That's right. Paul Morris, 100% correct. And when I say about Leanne Tander, because the tokenism,
is that Paul Morris on the?
That's the dude.
Hi, dude.
The car does not know the gender of the driver.
She's a good driver. She's been good on everything.
Correct, and that is some advice he gave to an up and coming or a young girl driver that wrote to him for advice, saying, "What's the advice?" He said, "Oh, the car doesn't know your gender." So you just.
But let's go back to this deal, the TCR deal for Albert Park. What we do know about it is it's for next year and possibly with options. We're not sure about the status of the races so far as championship is concerned, but there's every chance that there will be an announcement that this will be the first round of the 2020 championship. And getting on that platform in front of all those people, in front of all those sponsors, just imagine for a moment the drivers are the same, right? So we'll project this forward a year. So you've got James Moffat driving a Renault. So you've got Moffat and Ricciardo on the promotional cycle for Renault in the lead up to the race. That's not a bad combination. Let's imagine Dylan O'Keefe remains in the Alfa. So you've got Dylan O'Keefe doing promotional work with Kimi Räikkönen at Alfa Romeo. That's not a bad situation to be in. Up-and-coming young driver up against, Kimi, because he's going to be getting on for 40 by then.
my question is, what do you reckon the reaction is from the blokes in Sydney that have 8 cylinders?
World headquarters?
Because this announcement comes off last week's report that Supercars had actually knocked TCR on the head as a support category at the Adelaide 500, the Superloop 500.
And that's now being widely reported
So-
on the net tonight.
Yeah, so if that's the case, what do you think the reaction was? And when did they find out? Have you heard?
I believe Supercars were told yesterday as a courtesy. I imagine it would have gone down a bit like a cold pie in world headquarters. Supercars makes a great deal of their presence at the Australian Grand Prix, rightly so. They deserve it. They've been a big draw card at the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park for a long time. Of course, there was a year there when they weren't there, and now it's a championship race, which has been completely endorsed and embraced by Liberty Media that runs Formula One. So that's a big thing for them. But now, every pair of eyes that Supercars races in front of, TCR will, in all likelihood, race in front of as well. So this is a considerable coup for TCR. And I can imagine teams in Southeast Asia looking at the opportunity to run on a Formula One Grand Prix program and going, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go to Melbourne for the first race of the series.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Volkswagen could get involved because they would want to have some sort of presence at the Grand Prix. Some skin in the
Do
game.
they run the diesel?
No, don't think so. Hyundai run the diesel. No, they don't. But the i30N, so Hyundai could be there. And don't forget there's going to be a new model Hyundai eligible for TCR next year. And this is a considerable carrot. So, for AGR...
Well, they've just landed the 5th one. You're saying it's going to be out of date.
Well, there's going to be a new car available. They can run Velocitas. So, I think...
The 3-door?
Yeah, we got one of those at home. It's a great car. In the garage. My wife's got one. So, which we paid for, by the way. Don't say anything on
Philip,
Facebook.
you buy the strangest cars, you do.
What have you got?
Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, of course you have. So, there's a big opportunity here. And look, well done to everybody at AGR. I'm sure that Matt Braid and the troops have worked very hard on this, and it's a considerable coup for them. It's not going to be universally popular, but I think it's going to be good races and good to see at Albert Park. That's my 5 cents worth.
I reckon it's going to be interesting now to see.
And you said they were no good. You said they don't overtake. Oh, the racing. What do we think of the racing
at the?
What do we think of the racing at the Bend? We've got a question before.
I thought, funnily enough, I did watch it, and I thought one of the races was appalling.
Yes, I thought that was a bit boring.
And the other two were not too bad.
Do you know what my takeaway from the weekend was?
But not every race is ever going to be great.
No.
That's
right. Well, you see,
and first time there and all of that sort of stuff.
And they're still in the process of sorting out the cars and getting enough spares.
Yeah.
My takeaway from the 3 races over the course of the weekend was run on the shorter circuit. Don't run on the 2-minute circuit. Run on a shorter circuit.
Yeah.
More laps in front of the punters. Give them a bit more bang for their buck.
All 5 of them.
All 5 of them. Wow.
Marg says she loves her Veloster. Thanks for watching, Marg.
Hello, darling. I'll be home soon. It's a great car. It's a terrific car.
If we keep going like this, you won't be home for a while. Now we'll talk about
That's
that.
my
because,
wife, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering.
Because we'll talk about TCR and that, and obviously, this deal would have flooded a few people up in Sydney yesterday.
Yep.
But they also were announced, the Australian Racing Group.
Yeah.
Which is the company which runs it, headed by Matt Braid. They were announced as the category managers, or the management company, to run the TCM series, the Touring Car Masters.
Good. And?
That's good?
I think so. Don't you think so?
Well, how do they get to run Touring Car Masters when supercars couldn't run GTs?
That would be a question we'd have to ask Cams.
Well,
Because my understanding is that Cam's that was a deal in principle, and Cam said no.
It's a done deal, and I mean, the GT series. Looking at last week at where were they?
The
Bend is floundering. There was
it's not good.
7 GT3 cars and 2 GT4s. It's floundering.
And look, people have criticised supercars in the past for perhaps not prioritising things that aren't exactly supercars. I can guarantee that if supercars ran a GT championship, there'd be more than 7 cars there. Yeah, that's a theoretical, but...
Well, then that'll lead us into something else which we're going to talk about. And the big news of the last couple of days was the the announcement of the Chevy Corvette.
Oh, okay. When are we going to talk about that? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
So let's not get ahead of ourselves,
we have vision to go.
Let's talk GT racing. And great news yesterday was that, or the day before, that Aussie Ryan Briscoe. Hello, Ryan. Ryan Briscoe, an Englishman, Richard Westbrook, won the IMSA Northeast Grand Prix at Lime Rock in the Ford GT. Now, Ford are out of GT racing next year, aren't
officially, but I think there's going to be privateer entries.
Privateer cars, yeah. So
there'll be some element of support, I would imagine, from the Blue Oval.
Yeah. And with Chip Ganassi Racing, they had a great win.
It's been a great program, hasn't it?
Oh, it really has excited people, and it's a fabulous-looking car, and I mean, they've sold whoever applied to get one, which was the process.
As you would.
He got one.
And probably Ryan's got one as well.
Sadly, we didn't get any vision of
we
Ryan
tried
driving.
Did you manage to get anything?
But we got him at an autograph session, which we've just there he is, second on the left. He's gone arse over.
Now, before anybody says anything,
oh, can we see that one again, Rob?
Go on, Rob. Robbie. No. Okay, all right.
Oh,
he is. He would be the first person to laugh at that. Briscoe.
Oh, yeah.
Terrific sense of humour.
Yeah.
Hi, Ryan. How's Connecticut? Hot?
Does he live in Connecticut or Charlotte?
Connecticut. His wife works for ESPN.
Okay.
They moved.
There you go.
He's near you.
There you go. So, but well done, Ryan. It's good to see you get up and get a win.
Yes.
Now, the big news as we were saying.
And get up off the ground and get a win.
Not get injured.
He bounces.
The 2020 mid-engine Chevy Corvette.
Okay, the
Q starts here.
The Q starts here.
There it is on the screen right now.
Okay. Now, we don't do road cars normally on this show, but...
Now, the big news for Australia and for all of the right-hand drive markets around the world is that car will be built in the factory right-hand drive. So it's going to avert the dramas of the Chevy Camaro, which we have in Australia at the moment, which is converted here by Walkinshaw Performance, Walkinshaw Engineering, who do a magnificent job converting that car. Like it is great. Fabulous. But that Corvette will be built right-hand drive.
For the first time. It's the first generation. C8 is the generation designation. It's the first time there's going to be genuine right-hand drive Corvettes coming out of the US. Now,
a lot of people saying, "Oh, listen, Corvettes aren't supposed to be mid-engined." The original designer of the Corvette always wanted a mid-engine car. Finally, it's happened in the 8th generation.
He was Russian.
Yes, and the gentleman's name escapes me for the moment. I did meet the designer Tom Peters, who designed the 7th generation car. He did come to Austin for the V8 Supercars back in 2013.
A man with two first names.
Yeah, Tom Peters. He also designed the Pontiac Aztec. Now, so if you've ever seen a Pontiac Aztec, you wonder why or how this bloke come up with that fantastic C7 Corvette.
Everybody has a bad day. That's not a great car.
It's like a journo. We all misspell every now and then.
Oh, God, don't start me. I've been copping it this week.
But the big thing about the Corvette will be on sale in Australia.
Now, the racing angle. There is a racing angle.
What does that mean for Australian racing?
Do you have any insights in that?
Well,
yes, no, maybe.
Just look at it this way. If we have a little bit of a chat about it, and a couple of people have asked us questions on here saying, "What do you think's going to happen?" Steve Williams, come on the Corvette. Why do you think it will end Holden's involvement in supercars?
Steve Williams, Thunderdome. Steve Williams.
Don't
know. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe. Now, what I think is going to happen is Holden always needs a relevant car to go racing. And they've just announced a 2-year deal with Triple Eight Race Engineering to continue with the Holden racing team, the Red Bull Holden racing team. That takes it into a year of the next generation car, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Right. I think when they have a relevant car, it doesn't necessarily mean they've got to race in supercars. I think that you'll find, and I'm pretty sure the conversations have already been had, that Holden its motorsport program will head down the GT path with the Corvette.
Really? So that does assume a couple of things. The first one is traditionally Corvette's racing priorities have been GTE. It's the American Le Mans Series and the Le Mans 24-hour race itself. So there's been a GTE version. So we're assuming that there will be a GT3 version, which is the category of cars that race here.
Let's just have a little bit of look at this vision right now, Robbie.
It's dark.
And
Robbie, can you turn the lights on in there, please?
What did we have back in last December?
Well, Christmas followed by my birthday.
And there it is right there. The racing version of the Corvette is already well underway.
But are we saying that's GTE or 3?
Well, we don't know at the moment, Philip, but I think it's fair to say that GM and Team Chevy and GM Performance, I think that they would recognise that there's an opportunity with the GT3 categories. Audi have sold a lot of cars around the world. Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini have sold a lot of race cars around the world.
So that's going to be their logical competition.
And I would think the road car starts at $60,000 US.
Well,
amazing. I think that will be where they're going to head. And why wouldn't you? Why would you continue racing? We know the Commodore has got a short lifespan. Holden are switching to SUV emphasis. We are SUV. And obviously they're Colorados and the light trucks. Everyone's heading that way. Manufacturers are getting rid of small and medium cars and larger cars. You've got a hero car, a sports car. It's ready-made. They can build them from the factory as a race car. Why would you muck around?
That's a good point. And there is a big market in GT3 cars around the world. McLaren and Audi and so on. Bentley.
And what factory...
moved a lot of metal.
And I would put it this way because the Holden factory team, out of Triple Eight Race Engineering, is incredibly well respected overseas. And we'll even talk about that late in the program, about an anniversary of their announcement as being a factory team.
Yep.
But they're incredibly well respected. What are they doing aside from supercars this year?
Does it start with G and end in T?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you're probably seeing some, and if Roland doesn't have a deal with them, I think he's just thinking well ahead of the pack again. And
couple more things I'll throw in there before we get off the Corvette.
Matt Bainey says, what engine is in that? That doesn't sound right. I don't know. Pontiac Aztec, he also is yuck. Only good Pontiac in recent years was the G8 and the GTO. Yes.
Correct. What engine's in it's an LS3? Is it an LS3?
I don't know.
It's 400 horsepower anyway. A couple more things before we get off the Corvette. Number one, you mentioned price before. If you do the standard multipliers, if you compare a car made in America and sold in America and sold here as well, and I went through this with about 3 levels of Mustang, the multiplier is about 1.7. So that gets it in at about 100,000 Australian dollars. Might be a little bit more than that because GM they want to sell us,
and a bit of luxury car tax.
They'd want a bit of premium gear in the car as well. That's number one.
Yeah.
And number two, don't forget there's a change of regulations coming up for the Le Mans outright class. So there's a possibility that the C8 Corvette, there could be a racing version of that to go head-to-head with Porsche and Ferrari and a whole bunch of other brands for the Le Mans 24-hour race probably. And when's that? 22, I think? Maybe 23. So the possibility that the Corvette could write some history in the next couple of years. Hopefully some of it here in Australia.
Certainly exciting time, I think, for motorsport. And, obviously supercars need to sort out what they're doing with their category going forward, cutting costs or curtailing costs,
there's a lot of that going on.
The next generation.
But the question everybody's going to want to know...
But for Holden, I think it's...
The question everyone's going to want to know, Gerald, when it comes to buying their Corvette, is there a dealer they can trust?
Funny you say that, Phil.
Now, it's a question. I didn't say anything. I asked.
Rudy and the guys at TDM Motors, of course, Rudy, the gynecologist, he is only into used cars, but Lock Mandy Motors.
Who?
Welcome, Lock Mandy Motors.
Coming to you live from the Lock Monday showroom. Been selling cars here since 1969. Yeah, I'm kind of a big deal. I know, I'll let it out when I get home. We're located right here in Elkhart, right off of Napanee Street, which is French for come by your new Cherokee from Lockman Place. I bet you've never seen one of these Durangos before. Come on in, let's bond.
Napanee Street, Elkhart. Bet you haven't seen one of these 2014 Durango.
Is he in the witness protection program by any chance?
I think so.
That suit should be against the law too, by the way.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I haven't seen a mustache like that since I watched the documentary about a young man delivering pizzas to a lonely young lady.
Hey?
That's where I've seen your face. What's been going on in America apart from Locklandy Motors?
NASCAR.
What?
NASCAR, a couple of races over the past 2 weekends. Now listen, Phil, if we're talking a couple of NASCAR races, I've got to get all the Formula One shit from England, but we've all seen it. The Mercedes finished 1-2. We'll talk about them anyway. But a couple of NASCAR races. But what about dead set? Larry McReynolds, one of the most famous crew chiefs that there's ever been in NASCAR in the United States. Here he is telling everyone to start their engines. Geez, I hope he didn't blow a gasket.
It's up there, pull those belts tight one more time. Drivers, start your engine!
He is over the 7,500.
There's your next coach of the LA Raiders right there in the upcoming NFL season. Man, someone needs to tell him about decaffeinated coffee.
Oh, Jesus. Wow. Good old Larry McReynolds.
He should go to Locklandy Motors and try and sell some cars. That Durango, yeah, that's a bit of him.
It's 2014.
It's a 20-foot.
Kentucky was the first race, and 2 weeks of great racing. We've got to tell you this. Let's go to the highlights, Robbie. And Kentucky, they kicked off here. Kurt Busch won stage 1 in the Monster Energy #1 Chevy Camaro. And his brother Kyle Busch won stage 2. But this is where it got really thrilling. Stage 3, the big one, on the final restart. Cars are there, but you see who's sitting in second and third. We've got Kurt and Kyle Busch are sitting around there. Oh, hang on, that was on the start. Then Jimmy Johnson went around, stuck it in. But here they go after the last restart. This is the last lap. Kyle on the inside, Kurt on the outside. The #1 team hadn't won since 2013. They tagged coming out of turn number 4, and Kurt Busch won at Kentucky. Fabulous race.
It really was.
Fabulous race. And look, and here we go. On the right-hand side there was Bryce Seals. We spoke about Bryce, and I caught up with him recently in, where do I go? Sonoma the other week. But Brycey was on the right-hand side. Now, the great thing about that race win, and the team, a lot of guys on that race team hadn't experienced a win before. Matt McCall, the crew chief as well, he was winless to that point in time. So they really celebrated. And let's have a look at the celebrations. And it took a little bit out of the old time where the crew, all of a sudden Bush is getting in the car and the crew are going, hang on a second, we're going to ride this Camaro to victory lane. And how good is this? I said, hang on, we need the checkered flag as well. They took off. There's Brycey hanging on for dear life on the back. Have a look at them. Brycey's got the thumbs up. He's in the worst spot. He's texting as well.
Oh, well. Was he texting you?
And let's have a listen to what he says.
Hanging on, but I think it really stands out.
That touched my heart right there. That's cool stuff. Absolutely.
And how good's that? Even Dale Jr. thought it was fabulous. A throwback to old times, and team really celebrating its success. And,
whoever wins at Queensland Raceway this weekend, if you don't do that, we're watching. We're gonna name names. That's what we're gonna do.
Well, and there's only 4 right-hand turns and 2 left-hand turns to get back to victory lane, isn't there?
It's the closest thing we've got to a NASCAR oval in reverse anyway on the Supercars calendar.
I always actually thought the Queensland Raceway would have made a good flat oval track.
I think that was part of the original plan, wasn't it?
Jesus.
Back in the day?
Well, certainly no one with any inspiration in design come up with anything but a paperclip.
Well, they do like to turn to the right there in Queensland. Don't they?
It's the persuasion.
Hasn't the recent election just proven that?
And thank Christ for Queensland.
We'll miss you, Gerald, when you move there.
Oh,
I'm only joking.
One day.
No, we won't. What else happened in NASCAR? New Hampshire? Speaking of places that turn, well, actually, to the left. That's a very liberal state.
It is.
Have you been? It's a nice place.
Yeah. Yep.
Hello to anybody watching in New Hampshire.
That's nearly where I flew to the other week to go and watch Richie Crampton racing, drag racing, when he was actually 2,000 kilometres away.
You would have flown to Manchester.
Correct, or Boston.
Or
now let's go and have a look at those highlights from New Hampshire. The race win, stage 1. Now, a different track, a shorter track, Phil, and there we go. Kyle Busch again in the 18 car, starting to pick up the points. There's only 7 events left until they get into the playoffs. See Jimmy Johnson out there. Bit of a couple of coming together. The 41 Haas car, Mustang. Then we saw Eric Almirola take the stage 2 win. But another thrilling race at the finish. The 42 Kyle Larson went in, but here we go. Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin racing like the week before, right to the end. They're touching. And Kevin Harvick in the, ironically, Busch-sponsored Ford Mustang for Tony Stewart took the win. So
it's a lot of Busch.
A lot of
Busch in NASCAR.
A lot of Busch. So that was the NASCAR highlights of the last 2 weeks. Now,
the evenness of the competition in NASCAR at the moment is probably as strong as it's ever been. I don't know how they do it.
Well, look, Chevy at least have started to come back and take some wins. They've now taken 3 or 4 race wins in recent times. They certainly were getting smashed by Joe Gibbs Racing and the Penske boys for a while, but at least that's a TSR win, Tony Stewart Racing win as well.
Yes, it is. But, Gerald, I don't know how they do it. How do they do it?
The cars?
Yeah.
Well,
funny I should ask?
No, yeah, funny you should ask, because I stumbled across this and I thought it was worth having a look at. Now, this is the number 1 car going through inspections. Now, I haven't seen a light show like this since the Manhattan Hotel Disco in 1983. Have a look at it.
Was Brian Mannix playing?
Yes.
That is amazing. Look at that.
But this is the OSS, the optic server, whatever, inspection. This is how they inspect the cars. There it is, 90 seconds. The laser inspection is done on the car. There's 16 lasers within that shed. We can kill that now, Robbie. And there's 16 lasers in the shed, 15 around the car, and 1 underneath the car. In 90 seconds, it scans 1.2 million spots on the body.
That is amazing.
It really is. It's something special, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
and this is technology that's been around motor racing for a long time. A friend of mine in the UK has got a company called Physical Digital that does this with a lot of Formula 1 teams and WEC teams, WRC teams as well. But to see this level of technology accessible at that level, not that I'm saying NASCAR's down a step, that's staggering.
Oh,
and maybe this is something we can look for in supercars sometime in the not too distant future.
Well, what it does, ironically, all of the teams that used to, because they used to use the big templates and they'd measure the cars, and teams would go and let's whack a little bit out here and a bit there, and try and push everything to the extreme.
Yeah,
they've now all had to go out and buy their own scanning systems. So all of the big teams actually have those scanning systems in their workshops.
Yeah,
so they push 1.2 million spots to the nth degree every time, the skew of the body, not only a little bit here, a little bit, they skew the body on the chassis as well. They check it.
So post-race tech inspection,
and that's pre and post. Pre and post.
Yeah, is going, like, the discrepancies coming out of that, and we've all seen it before, and in America they have this thing, particularly in NASCAR, where you keep the win, you pay a fine, or you lose some points or something. I think some of those technicalities are going to be a thing of the past. There's going to be a fewer, I think, well, there's not going to be any DQs, but there's not going to be any of those tech breaches, or as many that we've seen in the last 10 years, for instance. Anyway, it's a great move by NASCAR and spectacular vision.
Oh, yeah.
Has that car got a stereo? Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, probably.
You can play the samba. What about a polka music? You can get some polkas.
It probably has smooth FM like you listen to, Philip.
Weird Al Yankovic. He's very underrated.
Now
Check
you're
out his
an
latest
open wheeler guy. What's up now? And I should just there's Benny Grimshaw's there. He's saying hello to us. Brent Staker likes the Motorsport show video. Brent Staker, who contested Ninja last week.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I thought he didn't look familiar.
No helmets, big fines. A lot of people joining us. Dan Bennett, Ricky Glass, Julian Conlon. Great to have your company, everyone. So if you've got any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to fire them in. You can do that here on Facebook. We can see them online. We really do enjoy having your company. But open wheelers, Phil.
Open wheelers, Gerald.
What
Iowa,
happened?
corn country. Let's go to the tape, Robbie. Now, this wasn't my place last night at 10 o'clock. This was what it was like for hours in Iowa. It pelted down, and it was live on NBC, by the way. So there was...
So that was actually live TV.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
And I think what they go about 4 or 5 hours late, didn't they?
Yeah, it was getting dark.
Yep.
Well, it was dark.
Well, it was dark.
Because it was a race under lights. And Diffie and co feeling, God, we really felt sorry for somebody like that on NBC Sports. Let's see what happened in the race. Because eventually they did race. And the crowd, you got to hand it to the crowd, they really stuck around. Team Penske once again to the fore. And Joseph Newgarden running at the pointy end for most of the night. Very consistent effort from him. Conditions were not fantastic. Will Power led the race at one stage, but did have problems later on in the pit. Safety car came out, and here's Will trying to make some moves up through traffic in the Verizon car when he got set back there a little bit. Sato got turned around, and he's having a terrible run at the moment because he lost an engine the week before.
And is that Sage Kareem again?
I think so.
Yep.
Now this is what happened to Will Power. He had a difficult entry to the pit lane, and got put back. And once again, the Ganassi cars coming through the field. Scott Dixon is having an amazing season, but so is this guy, Joseph Newgarden, the former IndyCar champion, takes his 4th win of the season, and there's just no holding the guy back at the moment. But Scott Dixon is he is Mr. Consistent, and I think, is he one of the most underrated racing drivers in the world in the last 20 years?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Not by the people who know him; they rate him very highly.
No, and he hadn't been having a great day or a great weekend in Iowa, and to come back and finish second was a tremendous job.
And this has been something that's been going on through the course of the season.
What is he? Is he a 5-time champion of the series?
I think he is.
Yeah,
and he'll have an ordinary qualifying session and come back through the race. He's like Garth Tander and an open wheeler. Fantastic driver, and the championship is there's still a long way to go. But Newgarden at the moment, it looks like he's in fantastic form. Bit of conversation about Rossi perhaps being in sights of the people at Red Bull for a move back to Formula One.
Valentino
Rossi at the age of 41 may be going to Formula One. That'd be fantastic. Alexander Rossi, who's been in Formula One before. There's a deal on the table from Andretti to keep him, but it's kind of contingent on which way that goes. There could be a move that the Andretti team will move to Chevy Power next year.
Does Chaz Mostert or Scott Pye come into considerations in this discussion?
Well, are you assuming that James Courtney's going to be staying where he is?
Wow.
We don't know.
No.
How do we get from IndyCar to James Courtney?
We said Andretti.
I see what you've done there. No, I don't see what
Well,
you've
if
done.
everyone thinks that Scott McLaughlin's going NASCAR racing
or
IndyCar racing.
But see, one of the interesting things is Rossi is very well liked by Honda. And if they move him to Toro Rosso, it could be tempting. You might want to go back to F1.
Well, there you go. Could be a good drive.
We should know in a few weeks.
Well, there you go. Keep those questions and comments coming in, please, everyone. We do enjoy it.
Who's out there?
Dan Bennett. Hey, guys. Love the show. Thoughts on the new 400 Thunder calendar and recent announcement of colder upgrades?
Dan Bennett. Is he irrelevant?
Dan, the 400 Thunder calendar, it's a pro series that runs in Sydney and Brisbane at the moment. It needs to expand. And until they've got the right bloke in charge, Steve Betts, but until drag racing hierarchy, I'm not saying Steve Betts, can get their heads out of their asses and join the sport back together again, we're going to struggle. And I say we. And has Calder Park been announced as upgrades? They've announced, I think, 3 times over 5 years that they're going to relay the track, and it hasn't been done yet. So,
The drag racing the drag track,
Yeah,
the quarter mile,
Yeah.
not the whole track.
yeah. So I don't know about those. Lockie Craven says, "Go Lions." Yes.
Which lines?
The mighty Brisbane Lions, mate.
You're not from Brisbane.
We're sitting second
Neither are
in
you,
the
Lockie.
in
What
the
are you talking about,
AFL
Lockie?
at the moment. So,
I wouldn't know.
but Dan Bennett, I do hope. As I said, they got the right bloke in charge. Let's hope he gets the support he needs to run the 400 Thunder Series properly. Because drag racing is a fabulous sport, and the teams over the last 4 years have put on a remarkable shows around the country in Top Fuel and the other pro categories.
Speaking of which, what happened in the city named after Gilligan, Denver?
So let's go to the US on drag racing. Yeah, so the first of the 3 race Western Spring here is the Top Fuel final. Clay Milliken near side, Steve Torrance far side, and the Capco team just been almost unbeatable. Was up for grabs that race then, but Torrance took his 8th win of the season.
You okay?
Yeah.
Right.
8th win of the season. And then in funny car, Tommy Johnson Jr. got let away from the lights a bit, but the Make-A-Wish Dodge Charger won up there on the mountain at the Dodge Mile High Nationals. Philip, that's where you can go and join the club without going for a fly in a plane.
Been there. Not going to say whether I've done that.
Tommy Johnson's second race win of the year. And in Pro Stock, Matt Hartford going for his second Pro Stock win against Greg Anderson, going for win number 92. And Anderson in the Summit Chevy Camaro on the far side had not won since Denver last year. But the multi-time champion made it 2 in a row. So a very good win for Greg Anderson and his teams. We should say that Aussie Richie Crampton lost in the second round to Steve Torrance. He actually had Torrance just got him off the line by a little bit on reaction time, but Richie had him. He was well in front of him till the car smoked the tyres. He pegged the advantage back off the line very quickly. Then, unfortunately, the car smoked the tyres at just near half track, and Torrance powered past him. So he almost had him on toast if he hadn't have smoked the tyres, unfortunately. Now, we do need to see this in qualifying for Pro Stock. Veteran Kenny Delco on the near side, the KD Racing Chevy Camaro. Looked to be a fairly standard Pro Stock run until after the finish line. And all of a sudden, the KD Racing car took off and made very hard contact with the wall. So
Do we know what happened? Was it a blown tyre?
no, it just no, we don't know what happened actually. And you look at it. The problem with Pro Stock cars, Phil, is that the aero on the cars makes them quite unstable. If they get any little bit of air the wrong way or whatever, they take off. And 500 cubic inch fuel injected engines. They make, whatever 1,000 horsepower, not in the tens of thousands. They don't have a lot of downforce. They need a very slippery body, and it doesn't take much to set them off. But I believe we do have an official word as to why.
Young bloke, cold tyres, fucked up.
Well, that says it all.
It does say.
Are we paying him royalties? No. Are we paying Castrol royalties?
No.
Jack's about 9.
Nor are we paying for the vision. Well, the vision's online, mate. What young bloke. Oh, yeah.
That's all well and good, okay? But here's my problem, and I know this is a problem for a lot of people listening at home. It's too loud. What we'd like to see, Gerald, is drag racing without the noise.
Well, especially when you
Can
get
you
to
help?
87 years of age, Philip. and
Sorry, you'll have to speak up.
You want to turn those...
I don't want to say how many years I've got to go.
You want to
And
turn...
if you tell them, I'll choke you.
26. And if you want to turn those hearing aids down, no, the greatest drag racer ever of all time, the legendary Big Daddy Don Garlett's actually 87 years old, and this past weekend attempted to be the first to break the 200-mile-per-hour barrier with an electric BEV, a battery electric vehicle, dragster he put together himself, and that was Big himself.
Big.
Big.
Do they call him Big?
Yep.
They call him
Big
Don
and
or
Big
Mr.
Daddy.
Garlett's. Big.
So that was Swamp Rat 38. And let's just have a look and a listen to... That's it. So that's the noise of the electric dragsters. But I didn't quite get there. Did Big. He went 7:23 on one run. And
Do we have the run?
no, unfortunately, I couldn't get any vision of it.
You know
And
why?
100
You know why?
Ran out of batteries?
No, because the cord.
Oh.
He would have broken 200 miles an hour, but it only went 800 feet.
189.04 miles per hour. So
That's an old joke.
one of the thrills of my life, Philip, was getting to
Apart
meet
from this show,
Big Daddy Don Garlett. It's the first ever time I went to the United States. Back in 1990, I went to the Winter Nationals. A friend of mine, Paul DeNichol, said, come over, we're going to the States. We go to the Winter Nationals. We walked in there, and Paul had been there a couple of times before, and he couldn't believe it. I saw Big Daddy's in someone else's pit area behind the ropes. I just said, screw this, come on. I got the camera, come on, we're going. We're getting the photo. We just walked straight in. Hello, Mr. Garlett's Big Daddy. Can we please have a photo? Could not help myself.
yeah.
Had to. It'd be like walking in the
And?
F1 garage and seeing Michael Schumacher or Juan
yeah.
Fangio or someone going, listen, I've just got to go and have a photo taken with him. Couldn't help myself.
The only time I actually got stand next to Michael Schumacher, I didn't get a photo because it was in Adelaide and we were standing at the urinal in the toilet in the media centre.
That's why Paul Newman gave up.
And
giving autographs.
strangely, he didn't want to have his photo taken. The flag of America on one side, on the other, the flag of the USA. It's a battle of the countries.
In the funny cars.
In the funny
Let's
cars.
watch. Now, we're talking about most bizarre incidents.
This is, folks, tune in here. Get your friends around and tell me.
Now, here we go. Now, this is in Jackson Dragway in Tennessee. Now, see these cars going into stage? All of a sudden, they've gone, hang on. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Lights are flashing. Crew are looking. They're pointing there. All of a sudden, shit. What's going on, Philip? What is going on? Blokes
Everything.
are jumping over the wall.
You aren't going to believe
The
this.
two cars are sitting there, and lo and behold, what has come down the track and impaled itself on the starting system there, and on the concrete blocks, but a road car. Allegedly drunk driver Jerry Oliver, who has apparently jumped the ditch coming off a highway before hitting another vehicle. Now, here's the other view. Watch everyone start to run. Bang!
Yeah. A couple of points to make here. This is something, I mean, this is so unprecedented in anything you've ever seen in motor racing.
So-
I'll give you an exception in a minute. There wouldn't have been security at the far end of the strip to keep road cars away from it, because that's something that never happens. The only case I can think of where something like this has happened, 1972, Oran Park. The showdown between Alan Moffat and Bob Jane for the Australian Touring Car Championship, and some drunk punter thought, you know what I can do in my Valiant Pacer? I can beat these clowns, and drove onto the circuit. And the funny thing was, I was talking to AM about that about 3 years ago, and he'd forgotten. Bob hadn't before.
No, Bob
he
wouldn't have
passed.
forgotten that. No, well, it's a funny thing. Now, I should say Jerry Oliver. He's jumped the ditch. He's hit some other vehicle, pissed out of his brains, clearly. So then he's found himself running down the wrong way of the drag strip. So he's crashed the car, airlifted to hospital. Sadly, he's in a critical condition. But Marion County Police have been reported to have charged him with a string of offences, including driving under the influence, 8 counts of aggravated assault.
Of what? Sorry, 8 counts of what?
Aggravated assault.
Right, not aggregated.
No, aggravated. And driving with an open container in the vehicular.
Well, that's almost the
vehicle.
last of his worries. He had an open container. He had a can of Pabst that was open.
And it would have splashed everywhere. But it did.
Wow, something would have splashed everywhere.
We were talking before the start of the show, and won't forget the first time we went to New Zealand for a championship round of the supercars back in 2001.
Good story.
And, of course, this is not long after 9/11, So all of the Holden staff weren't allowed to fly, but the contractors were, because we were expendable.
Still are, really.
Clearly I was. So Plastic, Tim Pemberton, Brock's long-time PR bloke, myself as the junior Plastic at the time, and John Stevenson, who was the Motorsport boss at the time, but a contractor, not an employee, Steve-O, and a former Brock and Perkins person, and used to run HDT. We were over there. We were in a Toyota Avalon hire car, and we drove out to Pookie, and Pookie's great, nice, beautiful countryside going out there. And before the main entrance, traffic come to a halt, and someone walked out into the road because there's another entrance to the support paddock, and they saw us in our Holden shirts and said, "Come this way." Mm-hmm. So they waved us through, and we got down to the next gate. And the people saw that we had the Holden shirts on. They just waved us through, and obviously we're in a rent car, so we must have come from Australia. And we got to the next gate, and they waved us through.
Yeah.
And I drove about another 20, 30 metres and stopped. And Steve, I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're on the track." He said, "No, we're not." I said, "We are on the track at Pukekohe."
Yeah?
They waved us through. So we did a lap, and then we drove in pit lane. And we parked, and this was before the bridge, the permanent bridge and everything there, of course. So we parked our car, because you used to have to, shut the track and let everyone walk across in those days. So we parked our Toyota Avalon at the end, and if you look at 2001, there's a white in any of the vision on I think the first day of practice or the second day it is, one of them. There's a white Avalon parked there. That's ours.
Yeah. I'm going to look up Natsoft tonight when I get home and see where you qualified.
They just kept waving us through.
I could name one or two teams that were around in those days that might be slightly slower than you over a lap. I'm not going to name them on this show because I quite enjoy owning a house.
I think I actually ran pretty good in that lap.
Everybody always thinks they run pretty good.
Although Paul Morris reckon I'm the worst driver he's ever been with. And he would know because he's a terrific.
There's a few car journos I check in there.
Well, yeah, probably. Mark Ware asks us, why can't Steve Torrance be beaten in the NHRA? Well, he's been beaten a couple of times, but they just got their shit together. It's as simple as that. He's got a fabulous team, a very stable team. I don't think anyone's changed off it for 5 or 6 years. Richard Hogan is the crew chief. Dom Lagana is the assistant crew chief. Is it Dom? One of the Lagana boys.
So when he speaks to his crew chief, he goes, "Hogan." Sorry, I had to throw that in. It's compulsory.
Especially since I'm a big fan. But no, they just got this stuff together, and
it happens.
In fact, the win on the weekend was his 35th win in Top Fuel, which ties him with Big Daddy Don Garlett's on the list of most ever wins. Tony Schumacher has the most with 80, I think, but it really puts him up there in Top Fuel.
I haven't got a selfie with Tony Schumacher either.
No. And
I didn't look down. But anyway, let's move on to supercars. What's happening this weekend?
Let's move on. I'm just catching up to see if we've got any more questions.
Any questions?
Malcolm Turnbull. Yeah, we knew that.
Malcolm Turnbull.
Holden's Rock.
Hi, Malcolm. Thanks for watching.
Supercars, Ipswich preview, new centre of gravity rules. Scott Hallinan said this weekend in Supercars, why can't Supercars stop fiddling with the rules? Well, because they've got the closest set of cars they've ever had in history, they said at the start of the year. But unfortunately,
the actual words were closest ever.
Closest ever. But unfortunately,
it
wasn't. And so now we've had the fourth. So we had centre of gravity.
Well, yeah, you and I were talking before we came on air tonight whether it was the third or the fourth.
It's the fourth. Definitely the fourth.
So
they had the centre of gravity.
3 and 3A. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they did the aero.
Yeah, but did they when they did the aero? Did they do 2 aeros? Did they do the gurney flap and the splitter at the same time?
Yeah, no. So they did the aero to the Mustang.
Yeah.
Then the next time out they did the Commodore under tray.
Okay.
Right.
I thought they cut the splitter on the Mustang.
They did, but then they did the Commodore under tray.
Okay, all right.
And now they've done the centre of gravity again, and apparently. This is out of computer simulations. That it's tuned it up a bit. the block and tackle and the forklift appeared not to work as good as what it should have last time.
So the upshot of this is that what we've seen is weight raised on a number of the cars, and Tickford put a video on of them putting the metal strips, steel strips on the top of the windscreen and the back window.
Yep.
So that kind of removes the need to actually affix ballast to the top of the roll cage. The other significant thing is that and there's also been, I think, some fine tuning of the Commodore. But the other significant thing is the weight. They did the engine weights a couple of years ago for the COG. In the Nissan, the weights have been lowered to the level of the sump. So one of the things to watch in Queensland Raceway this weekend is how will the Nissan Altimas go. They're getting a bit long in the tooth now, but traditionally the Nissans have gone okay at the paperclip. So let's wait and see how Rick Kelly and in particular Andre Heimgartner goes this weekend. To see if they can get some more speed out of the Datsuns.
Good luck.
Results last year, do you remember who won?
No, you.
Yeah, I do. Race 1, Mac.
Right.
SVG, so New Zealand won 2. Leading Australian in the race was Craig Lowndes from Victoria. We'll claim him if he's going to be on the podium, from Jamie Whincup and Fabian. And race 2, SVG and McLaughlin. So Shane reversed the reversed the circumstances. Chaz was the leading Aussie on this occasion ahead of J-Dub and Fabian again. So Scott McLaughlin's got fantastic form there, but so has Red Bull. And
big test last week.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. And you can never discount them. I mean, this is the worst season performance-wise they've had for some time. They keep on getting decent results. They're just falling further and further behind. McLaughlin, not a great result for him on Sunday at Townsville, but he managed to scrape it back to 11th. And you would have to say that sooner or later, by the laws of statistics, something is going to go wrong with one of those Ludo rockets. You think?
Well, yeah.
It's just the law of averages, Gerald. It's motor racing. Something will fall off.
Well, you would think so.
Even if it's not Scott's performance.
You would think so.
But he's having a fantastic season.
Oh, yeah.
So and it should be good.
And
Racing's usually okay at, usually entertaining at QR.
Now, today is the 24th of
Is it?
July, so that's the 25th, 6th, 7th, 8th, Monday.
What?
The 29th of July is quite a special occasion. It's the 10th anniversary of the announcement that Triple Eight Racing were going to go to Holden. And there it is. There's the picture right there of Jamie Whincup and Roland Dane having driven the...
Who's that guy down the balding...
With the green jacket on the right with the camera at the front, just in front of Roland Dane there on the right. That's Robbie here at Fuzzy. So that was a big announcement we made in Melbourne that day. Well, let's go to the next picture. Thanks, Robbie, if you want to stop looking at yourself.
This is all he's got.
Yep. Team Vodafone goes Holden. There's Robbie there again, just in front of the car, holding the camera up.
This is like a certain...
Oh, there's me.
This is like a certain magazine journalist we know, getting in every damn shot.
Actually, I didn't realise there's me in that as well.
Where's Gover? We should have a cardboard cutout Gover in that photo.
But there was Jamie Whincup looking very happy indeed, and the shirt even had Holden on it. No Craig Lowndes to be seen anywhere. Let's go to the next one. And there's a couple of blokes that helped make the announcement. On the left there of screen is Alan Beatty, who went on to be the head of Chevrolet marketing and GM marketing worldwide until he left the company not too long ago, late last year, early this year. And on the right, at that time, was the managing director of Holden, Mark Royce.
Whatever happened to him?
The Rolls-Royce. And this was just the day after Alan Beatty had been announced as the next managing director of Holden. That's right,
he'd come in from Vauxhall.
And he was going to be the managing director. And he'd been there for a while.
Yeah, but
at that point. But yeah, he had
his last posting was in the UK.
Yeah, and so the Rolls-Royce, Mark Royce went back to the United States, was in engineering, then product, and then he's now the president of General Motors worldwide.
What a career he's had. And
drove the Corvette onto stage and made the presentation on the 17th, so just a week ago. And a true car guy. Everyone at Holden gets nicknames. Oh, used to. I don't know what they do now, but everyone used to have nicknames. And we very quickly called him the Rolls Royce because he was first class.
Yep.
Now, out of that announcement, it's interesting to note, Philip, that Triple Eight Race Engineering, since debuting at the Yas Marina in 2010 in a Holden, they have now won 137 races.
Wow.
For Holden.
Not bad.
They're in their 10th season, although it's only 10 years since they made the announcement. It's the 10th season of racing.
So on average, it's
14 races.
Is that more
14 wins a year?
Is that more than half the races?
Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic.
It
and,
really
and it's difficult to believe that, and don't forget what the precursor to this was. They were previously a Ford-supported team, and the announcement came a year and a half earlier in Darwin that Ford were changing their motorsport policy and would go on to support what was then, I think, Ford Performance Racing, it was called that, and the Stones, and of course Dick Johnson Racing, and Triple Eight were out on their ear, and Triple Eight eventually...
And Dick.
And Dick. And Triple Eight eventually became... an unbranded team with a pig on the front of the car, and then they became a Holden team a year after that. And Dick Johnson won it in 2010, and it was a bit of a dry spell for Ford.
I can tell you the day that Paul Gover was the one who, as the journalist, broke the news to Dick Johnson.
Yep,
they hadn't told either Dick or Triple Eight that they weren't going to have the support going on the next year. Mm-hmm. Gover rang Dick Johnson to get the story for the Herald Sun, and broke the news to him. The next person he rang was, I believe it was me, because he wanted to break the news to me that Dick didn't have any support. And I said, well, what about who else is getting support? And he grabbed over Triple Eight. All right, okay. And I can tell you where we were sitting, because we'd gone up to Darwin a day early to do a school function thing with the local kids and Holden Fleet and everything. And so it was about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We're actually at the Buzz Cafe having a nice cold Corona by the water.
Yeah.
And
you remember the brand of beer?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do, actually. We're having a nice cold Corona by the water. And I very hurriedly got to Gover off the phone. I pressed end. I turned to Simon McNamara and I said, can you believe that? Ford had given Triple Eight the arse.
Yeah.
And... It was on.
It was unbelievable.
From that moment on, it was on.
And that news was in Darwin. I remember on Saturday morning talking to Ray Price from Ford.
Ray Price.
What a good bloke. The engineer who was at Ford Motorsport and went on shortly thereafter to work in their truck division. And he was an excellent bloke. But he was already crook that weekend, and that didn't help his mood whatsoever. And then it was it wasn't Ford's greatest PR effort. Let's put it that way. If they'd let the teams know, I mean, the worst thing that can possibly happen would be the media telling people.
Oh, it shouldn't happen like that. It's terrible. And,
anyway,
that's what did
that's
happen.
history. 10 years ago.
You talk about that. I mentioned on the show here the other week, it was 500 wins for Commodore. Shane Van Gisbergen drove the Commodore to the win. Where were they at the other week? Townsville. The 500th win for Commodore and 550th for Holden. Holden still haven't done anything with that.
Yep.
And it was 2 weeks later that Supercars actually put something on their website. The most winning car in the history of sport. You talk about there again, one team is advertising for a PR person at the moment. They want a tertiary qualified person with 2 to 5 years experience and want to pay them 40 to 60 grand. Now, if you want to pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys.
On that note...
Oh, well, it's got to be said,
no, I know.
If supercar teams are struggling for PR and struggling for coverage and struggling to get sponsors, if they don't employ the right people, they employ monkeys, that's all they're going to get. They're only going to get the peanuts from the shitty sponsors. They're not going to have proper programs behind it. Good businesses are all about the people, and you've got to employ the right people. And for 40 grand for a PR person, you're kidding. I got paid more than that 20 years ago.
All right, okay.
Righto.
Point made. A couple of things to mention before we go. Big weekend coming up in motor racing, apart from a couple of things I'll be watching, like the Suzuka 8 Hour, Formula 1, back in business this weekend in blistering Germany. Have you seen the weather forecast for Germany this weekend?
39?
37, 9?
30.
37 and 39. It's going to be like the Hunger Games out there in Formula 1 this weekend at Hockenheim.
There's 39?
Yeah. And a lot of people are going to be watching Sebastian Vettel from Heppenheim, which isn't far away. He can't afford any more mistakes. And are we watching now Vettel going through the motions? Is he starting to wind down his career? There has to be some sort of announcement soon about whether he's going to race next year. He has a contract with Ferrari. Will we see that happen? Who knows? Who knows? And also, I'm just getting something in my earphones about. Oh yeah, what? Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, Bottas. Valtteri Bottas has twice this year tested a World Rally car. He recently tested a Toyota in Finland. Yes, it was just a publicity campaign, and he's not going to the WRC. But if he does decide he's going to go, I've got this public service announcement to make. Esteban Ocon, would you please come to reception, please? Esteban Ocon, please come to Mercedes-Benz reception.
Don't even worry about that. The big question will be this weekend is, does William Story still own Rich Energy? Or he's claimed it back.
Oh, yes.
And will they be sponsoring the Haas team? If you're not onto the Rich Energy saga,
no, read out of Cooper's stuff. It's quite good.
Get onto Twitter and Rich Energy, Rich RICH _ then ENERGY. I can't wait for the ESPN 30 for 30 doco because it's just going to be a doozy.
It is fantastic because it seems as though there has been some dispute over actually who's in charge of their social media and who has access to it. So there have been things out there that you would never see otherwise. The only thing that's better is the social media manager of a British politician on the Conservative side resigned in 5 tweets and it came out in the politician's name. And basically everyone's walked out on him over what's happened in Britain. Some entertaining stuff going on. But yeah, Rich Energy is just, no one's certain what's going on. But
when you let the lunatics run the asylum, Philip?
Well, the signage will be on the Haas cars this weekend. And of course, one of the reasons I mentioned Ocon is there's a suggestion that he could be in one of those Haas cars by the end of the season after the 2 current incumbents managed to run into each other again.
Wow.
In the last race at Silverstone. And Lewis Hamilton's winning the championship by miles, and it's his title number 6. And forget about it. Put down your glasses. And Mercedes-Benz are 4,000 points ahead in the constructors' championship.
Yeah. Now, next show, everyone.
When's that?
Wednesday, the 7th of August. So we thank you for your company. We've had a good time tonight. Andre Fuller said, really enjoy the show. Thanks heaps, guys.
Thanks, Andre.
Thanks for joining in, and we've had good viewers right throughout
the
show.
Just before we go. Sorry, two things happened just before we came on air. Last 10 minutes before we came on air, ADP Anton De Pasquale has re-signed with Erebus Motorsport.
He did too.
2020 and beyond, according to the team. Great signing. He's a real talent. That kid. I was talking to him last week. He is very, very strong, and he's going to be strong at Bathurst this year. And just before we came on air, like 2 minutes, Formula One has confirmed season 2 of Drive to Survive.
Oh, the Rich Energy saga will be good.
Yeah, the Rich Energy saga will be a fantastic one to watch, and there won't be a dry eye in the house when they have episode 1. I'm sure that will feature Melbourne and the situation with the very untimely passing of Charlie Whiting. Michael Massey taking over as race director. It's just been confirmed for the rest of the year, by the way. And there was a service at Silverstone. Sebastian Vettel spoke movingly about that. Fantastic stuff. Great to see Netflix. If you haven't got it, get it. Or Foxtel.
Gunther Steiner going.
No, you can't say that.
Making me look like fucking idiot.
No, you can't. There's a great account called Gunther something Steiner on Twitter. Find it. It's fantastic. It's probably on Facebook too.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. Fabulous
August
to have you watching. August 7, 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Time, and we hope you enjoy the show. Thank you.
Bye.